Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in a 2007 Porsche Cayenne. I'm quite excited about this one because I've always been a fan of the Porsche Cayenne, ever since it was launched way back in 2003. It's really hard to believe that this car's been around for 17 years now. But anyway, this is a 2007 model, which is a facelift, but I'll get into that in a second. The Cayenne followed in the footsteps of the BMW X5 in that it was a sporty SUV. It really put the S in SUV. When it came out, lots of car fans didn't like the Cayenne. They slated it. Lots of Porsche geeks, sorry, there's no other real word, lots of die-hard Porsche fans thought that it watered down the brand somehow. I never really understood that. I think Porsche were ahead of the curve with the Cayenne. They could see the way the SUV market was going and acted fairly quickly. Porsche have sold millions of Cayennes in those 17 years, and it's really been a good money spinner for the Porsche company. It's thanks to this car that Porsche is now back in the black. I think they really hit the nail on the head with the Cayenne. They stole sales from Mercedes, Range Rover, BMW. It really was very successful. Lots of people didn't like the styling either. Now, I can sort of see where they're coming from. The fact that Porsche tried to sort of make the front end look like a 911 doesn't really work, but I like it. I don't think it's ugly. I think it's quite imposing. It looks expensive and rich. I mean, if you think about it, every single manufacturer has their signature front end that they put on all cars. Mercedes, BMW, even Kia. Everybody does it. So why shouldn't Porsche? If their 911 front end is what they want to put on all their cars, who are we to judge? I particularly like the side profile of these Cayennes, especially the ones with the roof rails like this, in black especially. I think in the black colour with the silver roof bars and the silver alloys, it just works. This is a late 2007 facelift model. The early models, from 03 to 06, have different style headlamps. There are a few other subtle differences. And they do look a little bit dated nowadays, so I think if you're in the market for a Cayenne, you really ought to look for a facelift model. I think the tail lights of the original Cayenne in particular do look a little bit dated now. As is the way with all Porsches, the interior quality is excellent. Everything you touch and press feels solid and over-engineered. The quality of the leather on the seats is thick and soft and expensive. And this car's now 13 years old, and there's no wear on the leather seats, so they've held up well. You just get the impression that Porsche have put a lot of thought into everything. Even the key, for example, which looks like a miniature Porsche. You don't see Renault doing that, do you? If they did, they'd have to make a key with a lift-up bonnet. If you go for a high-spec model, which is what I would recommend, you get every possible extra that you could ever need. I've got heated electric seats, sat-nav, air conditioning, cruise control, multifunction steering wheel. The Bose audio is very good too, and I definitely recommend that. The seats are some of the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in. They're supportive, but also really quite soft and comfortable. The interior space is quite good too. Even though this car is black on black, it still feels quite bright and airy inside. I like these sporty handles you get here near the gear lever. And there's still plenty of space around you. It's not as cosseting as a Range Rover Sport, but it's also not as open and airy as a Mercedes ML. So I think it's just right. The boot is a very good size. It's the same sort of space you get in a BMW X5 or a Mercedes ML. Performance-wise, this model is a 3.6 litre V6 and it produces 290 horsepower, which sounds quite impressive, but in reality it's quite a heavy car, so it's not the quickest thing you've ever driven, but it's adequate, I would describe it. Thankfully though, the Cayenne handles really well, so you should still enjoy driving it, even if you've got the base model. You can pick these cars up from as little as £3,000. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out and buy a £3,000 Cayenne, because you're probably just buying a headache there. But if you've got a budget of 10, you will get a late facelift model with sensible mileage. It's an awful lot of car for the money. This is what kind of excites me most about used cars, because you can pick up a car like this that once cost £50,000 for under 10. Yes, you're going to have slightly higher running costs, but that sort of goes without saying, doesn't it? I'd rather drive this every day for £8,000 than a Toyota Yaris. Maybe that's just me, but I'm sure I'm not on my own. Because it's a Porsche, we need to talk about performance. This is the base model 3.6. They also do a 4.8 and they do a 4.8 twin turbo in the turbo model. The performance of the Cayenne Turbo is mind-blowing. You just can't believe that something so big and heavy can move so quick. But if you buy the Turbo, you'll only be getting 15 or 16 miles per gallon, which is a bit of a stomach-churning thought for a lot of people. Whereas with this, you're going to average 22, 23, and it's quite tolerable. On a run, you'll probably get 26 or 27 miles per gallon. And the V6 engine, though, is very nice. The pre-facelift models were given a choice of a 3.2 litre V6, a 4.5 litre V8, or a 4.5 litre turbo in the Cayenne Turbo. Now those pre-facelift 4.5 V8s, the naturally aspirated ones, suffered with bad engines. I've seen lots of adverts selling cheap 4.5 V8s because the bores are scored and it causes a sort of tappety engine on the top end. So I would steer clear of the 4.5. The 4.5 turbo, although it's still a 4.5, isn't the same block. It uses a different block on the turbo. So if you fancy a V8, you're actually better off going with the turbo. While we're on the subject of the early Cayennes, they suffered with poor coolant hoses. Now a lot of people by now especially have replaced those with metal ones, but just make sure that's been done, because the plastic hoses can crack and then it causes overheating issues. They did also offer this generation Cayenne with a 3-litre turbo diesel, but it's still in the highest tax bracket in the UK, the same as the petrols. And in terms of miles per gallon, you're only going to benefit an extra 2 or 3 miles per gallon. So what's the point really? And they're an extra couple of grand to buy in the first place. So you're better off using that couple of grand to buy some more fuel for the base model V6. But that's just my opinion. Another good thing about the base model V6 is that it doesn't have complicated air suspension, which can often go wrong. They are great to drive, these Cayennes. The steering's almost perfect. There's not much body roll for a big heavy car, which is quite a surprise. They just feel quite light and agile. If you're in the market for a used Cayenne, I would recommend you go for a high spec model. I've been in a few poorly spec Cayennes and they're about as well spec'd as a cave. That's really not what you want from your luxury SUV. You want everything. Or at least I do. I would say heated seats, Bose audio and a multifunction steering wheel are a must. This one's got sat-nav too, and it's quite an old unit. It's not touchscreen or anything, and it does feel a little bit outdated. The quality of the display is quite good, but it does feel a little ancient. In fact, it still lists Winchester as the capital of England. So yeah, prices start at around £3,000. If it was me, I'd spend 7 or 8 and get an early turbo. But if you're worried about fuel, you're probably better off going for a facelift V6 like this one. This one's done 110,000 miles, it's a late 2007, and it's worth around £8,000. So yeah, if you've got a budget of 10 grand, you could buy something like this for 8 or 9 and keep a grand or 1,500 quid back for any repairs. As long as you find one though with good service records, it's had its oil changed regularly, and make sure it's had its gearbox serviced, you should be fine. They're a chain-driven engine, so there are no belts to replace. But yeah, if you're after an early one, just like I said before, make sure the coolant hoses have been replaced. I've just had an oil and filter change on this and an MOT, and it cost about 120 quid. So servicing costs really won't break the bank. I'm sure if you went to a Porsche main dealer who knew how to charge, they might give you a massive bill, but there are plenty of good independents out there. I've always liked this generation Cayenne. Even now, 13 years on, it still looks like it's got something about it. It's got a bit more of a wow factor than an X5 too. Mainly that's just because of the badge, I think, but still feels a little bit more special than an ML or an X5. As much as I love Range Rover Sports, if it was this or an early Sport, I think I'd go with the Cayenne because the interior is a little bit nicer. When you take these cars out onto the country roads, they come into a world of their own because they corner really flat. I mean, you can almost go around these corners at any speed you like. So thanks once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, if you've got any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll do my best to get back to you. So yeah, see you next time. Cheers guys.